Let's speak clearly, even if it makes you uncomfortable. There is a part of you that has been domesticated like a caged animal. You know it, even if you can't put it into words. You feel that something is missing. It's not money. It's not success. It's not love. It's something deeper, something primitive, something you forgot or were taught to ignore. Every time you feel desire, you channel it into distraction. You were taught that this is normal, that it's healthy, that it's human. But what if they lied to you? What if that energy you burn so quickly is actually the key to accessing a power you can't even imagine? It's not cheap spirituality. It's not religious morality. It's deep psychology. It's shadow. It's instinct. It's the hidden message in your impulses. Carl Jung warned about this decades ago, but almost no one understood. What you do not make conscious manifests in your life as destiny. And your destiny, if you keep ignoring this, is not freedom. It's emptiness. Look around you. Do you notice the widespread anxiety, the existential boredom, the lack of purpose? It's no coincidence. It's the result of a society that has trivialized sexual energy, reducing it to entertainment. We were trained to discharge, not to transform, to scatter, not to transcend. But Jung discovered something radical, that energy is not a whim of the body. It is the fuel of the soul. When you repress it out of fear, you become sick. When you waste it without awareness, you become empty. But when you learn to contain it, to redirect it, you awaken something wild, something the ancients called inner fire, something the modern world fears because it cannot control it. And do you know what is most unsettling? That you have already felt it. In those moments when you have abstained, even if by accident, days, weeks, without sex, without pornography, without masturbation, and suddenly something changes. Your gaze becomes sharper, your voice firmer, your decisions clearer. You get up with a strength you didn't know was inside you. But you didn't associate it. You thought it was a coincidence. It wasn't. It was your primitive power activating. Your libido redirected. And that is exactly what Jung explained with brutal precision. Sexual energy is not eliminated. It is transformed. What you do with it defines who you become. Have you ever wondered why the moments of greatest creativity, intuition, and personal strength coincide with periods of abstinence? It's not magic. It's pure psychodynamics. Jung spoke of the process of individuation, the journey toward becoming who you really are. And that journey demands sacrifice. It demands looking inward, facing desire, and not obeying it blindly. Because that is where your shadow resides. What you deny, what you repress, and what paradoxically can set you free. But be careful. This truth is not comfortable, because it forces you to see that you have been wasting the most sacred thing you have. Every time you let yourself be dragged by the need for instant gratification, you gave up on yourself, on your potential, on your power. Do you know what happens when you cannot control your impulses? Someone else will do it for you. Jung knew this. The man who does not master his libido is mastered by it, and the one who is mastered by it is a slave to the world. We live in a culture that doesn't want powerful men or women. It wants consumers, and a consumer doesn't think, it just reacts. That's why they bombard you with sexual stimuli every second, because as long as you are distracted by immediate pleasure, you won't look inward. You won't question your reality. You won't awaken. But what if you decide to resist? What if you refuse to follow the script they gave you? What if you choose to channel that energy towards something higher? What Jung proposes is not abstinence as punishment. It is transmutation for liberation. It is aligning your eros with your purpose. It is transforming carnal desire into creative impulse. It is going from victim of your passions to architect of your destiny. And that, my friend, is not theory. It is brutal practice. It is inner alchemy. It is psychic rebellion. Not against sex, but against its trivialization, against the idea that you cannot live without it. Do you realize the level of dependency that implies? When you become a slave to desire, everything else becomes secondary. But when you learn to master that energy, you become someone this world can no longer control. That is the truth I wanted to bring you today. A truth that is uncomfortable, but freeing. Carl Jung did not speak for the comfortable. He spoke for those willing to break from within, to look at their demons, to tame them, and to transform them into strength. Because there is no power more real than that of someone who is no longer a victim of themselves. Prepare yourself. Because what's coming is not a nice message. It is a shock, a call, a break with everything you thought you knew about desire, sex, and about yourself. Now listen carefully, because what I'm going to tell you, you won't find in any self-help book or empty personal development speeches flooding the internet. Jung didn't just talk about abstinence in physical terms, he talked about the psychic process of sublimation. What does that mean? It means transforming what is born as a primary impulse into something that nourishes your higher consciousness. But this is not mysticism, it is deep psychology. The same energy that drags you toward easy pleasure, if you don't give it away, if you don't spill it, begins to seek other ways of expression. And that's where it gets interesting. That energy seeks art, seeks creation, seeks direction. You cannot turn it off. You cannot cut it out. You can only guide it. And here comes the question that really matters. Where are you directing your energy? Because if you don't redirect it, it devours you from within. It becomes anxiety, frustration, compulsions. Jung explained with brutal clarity. What is repressed does not disappear. It deforms. The shadow you don't face becomes destiny, yes, but also illness. The desire you deny without understanding transforms into self-sabotage. That's why it's not about suppressing sexual desire as if it were something dirty, but about understanding it as a symbolic language. Behind every impulse, there is a message from your unconscious. It doesn't want sex. It wants expansion. It wants wholeness. It wants you to integrate the parts you forgot by following imposed rules. And this is where the archetype of the inner warrior comes in. Jung spoke about the need to face the internal dragon. That part of you that wants immediate gratification, that demands pleasure without commitment, that flees the void with artificial stimuli. That dragon is not killed. It is tamed. And you can only do it if you learn to resist the impulse to give in every time your body screams. Do you know what happens when you hold on? When you decide not to respond as always? A threshold opens. Something changes. The energy that was going to die in a brief moment of ecstasy starts to circulate through your thoughts. It becomes clarity, direction instinct, and most importantly, willpower. That is the real problem. You have lost your will, not from weakness, but from overstimulation. Every time you give in, you train your mind to obey, not to resist. And every act of obedience to immediate desire is a vote of confidence to emptiness. Do you want to know why you can't concentrate? Why you procrastinate? Why you feel disconnected? Because you have spilled the best of yourself over and over until you don't feel whole. Because every impulse surrendered without awareness is one less gram of your integrity. Now, observe the pattern. What do those who have transcended the ordinary do? Monks, artists, warriors, leaders, visionaries. They have all gone through a period of deep abstinence, not necessarily sexual, but energetic. They have learned to close doors, to open portals. They have understood that desire is a compass, but it must never be the captain. They have experienced the uncomfortable silence that arises when they do not give in to impulse, and they have survived it. And you? How many times have you crossed that threshold? How many times have you faced desire head-on without bending? Because here is the truth no one wants to admit. Holding back is not repression. It's strategy. It's preparation. It's mastering fire without putting it out. It's understanding that every withheld impulse is available energy. Jung made it clear, whoever manages to sublimate their libido can change the world. Do you realize what that means? It means that every time you choose not to fall, you are accumulating a force the system cannot calculate. Because the system needs you to be weak, to be predictable, to always respond the same way. The one who holds back becomes unpredictable, and the unpredictable is the only truly free. But now let me take you deeper. Have you heard about anima and animus? They are the internal representations of the feminine and masculine principles that we all carry inside. Jung taught that as long as you don't integrate your anima, if you're a man, or your animus, if you're a woman, you will live searching outside for what you haven't understood inside. And do you know how that lack of integration manifests? In sexual obsession, in uncontrolled attraction, in emotional dependency, in a constant search for something you feel is missing. But you are missing nothing. What happens is that you haven't learned to dialogue with your unconscious. You are looking in bodies for what you can only find inside yourself. Doesn't that seem brutal? Lust is nothing more than the soul's desperate attempt to recover itself, and that is where abstinence becomes revolutionary, not because of morality, but because of self-knowledge, because by stopping that external cycle, you begin to listen, to see, to interpret. And what do you discover? That your desire was not for another body, but for your other internal half. That what you longed for was not physical contact, but psychic union. That your libido was not for pleasure, but for awakening. And that changes everything. So it's not about becoming a martyr. It's not about denying your humanity. It's about reclaiming it, protecting your energy as if it were gold. Because it is. Every time you contain yourself, you are cultivating something sacred. You are building an inner temple, a place no one can violate, manipulate, or drag you away from. You are giving your soul the space it needs to emerge. And when it does, no force in this world can stop you. Because you no longer depend. You no longer seek. You no longer chase. You walk with direction, with a clear gaze, with a heart on fire, and that, believe me, shows. It's felt, it radiates, and that is where true power begins. Not the kind that shows off, not the kind that screams, the kind that holds in silence, in containment, in the invisible strength of someone who has chosen not to give in to easy pleasure, because they have exchanged it for something infinitely more valuable, themselves. And now that you've come this far, tell me, do you still think this is just about sex? Do you still think this is about abstaining from something physical? This is about something else. This is about power, about personal sovereignty, about reclaiming the reins you handed over without realizing it. Because here comes the secret that very few are willing to accept. Your body is only the surface, but your energy is sacred territory. And every time you decide not to react like a conditioned animal, you are writing a new narrative. You are breaking with centuries of automatism. You are giving up being part of the herd that doesn't think, that only consumes, that survives without understanding why. But this is not easy, because the path of self-control is lonely, because no one applauds your abstinence, no one celebrates your silence, no one notices the power you are cultivating, until it manifests. And when it does, it's too late for them. Because you have already become something else. You are no longer the same. Your gaze changes. Your presence becomes heavy, magnetic, inscrutable. You don't need to talk much, nor justify yourself, because your energy speaks for you. And that is something that cannot be faked, because it comes from within, because it is forged in contained fire, in redirected desire, in integrated shadow. You don't need to tell it, you don't need to prove it. The world perceives it, and it doesn't know what it is, but it feels it. And when that happens, you can't go back, because you have tasted what it means to walk without chains. You have seen what it feels like not to depend on anything or anyone to feel whole. You have tasted the most addictive freedom there is, that of not needing. And then you understand. What they sold you as freedom was a disguised prison, a cage full of pleasures, a prison with open doors, but invisible bars. Bars made of need, of impulse, of lack. And do you know what happens when you cut that dependence? You see everything with different eyes. The superficial no longer dazzles you. The urgent no longer controls you. Desire stops being master and becomes servant. You choose when to act. You choose what to give yourself to. You decide which energy is worth it. And that level of consciousness is a form of enlightenment. Not like a mystic, not like a saint, like a complete human being, whole, master of themselves. And that is what is most scarce in this world. So now I leave you with a question only you can answer. Are you going to keep emptying yourself through impulses you don't understand? Or are you going to start filling yourself with yourself? Because there, right in that choice, lies the difference between a directed life and a dragged life. Between a soul that burns and one that goes out without ever having shined. And if you've come this far, it's no coincidence. You are one of the few ready to hear this, one of those who can still recover their fire. So do it. Don't let it stay in words. Let it become practice. Let yourself feel it in every decision, in every moment when you can choose between the easy and the powerful, between the immediate and the eternal. And now, if this message has stirred something inside you, if it has touched a chord that others never dared to point out to you, subscribe. But don't do it for me. Do it for yourself. Because here we don't come to entertain. We come to awaken. And if you want more of this, if you want to keep digging where no one else dares, this is your place. Leave me a phrase in the comments, just one, that says everything without explaining anything. The fire does not go out, it transforms. That way I'll know you are part of those who no longer settle, those who are ready to own their energy. And now, yes, I'm leaving, but not as we began. I'm leaving with an echo that will haunt you. The next time desire calls you, don't answer right away. Look at it, listen to it, and ask yourself, does this empty me or build me up? Because that question, though it seems small, can change your destiny. See you at the next level, or not. You decide.